Hello, and welcome to another Website Depot podcast. As ever, I'm your host, Greg Benevent, and we're always love to take this opportunity to highlight some of our clients that, are really in a position where they can help people during this difficult, challenging times that we find ourselves in. So I'm very happy to have today's guest on with me, Dr. Trevor Small. Doctor, how are you doing today there?
I am great. Thank you so much, Greg, for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, no, believe me, I'm glad to have you. So so yeah, if you could just, introduce yourself a little bit, tell us about what you do, and then we'll get into it there.
Sure, of course. So I am the Director of Clinical Development for Insight Treatments Programs, and we currently have 4 different facilities here in Southern California. And I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I've been in the field of mental health. I started in 1988, so I've worked in lots of different settings, and I've had the opportunity to be a part of lots of great programs. And I'll tell you, Insight as a program is probably one of the best ones I've been a part of. So I'm real excited to be on today and talk about it.
That's great. So yeah, I guess the big thing, all of us kind of wondering about is that, with the lockdowns and the pandemic and all of this, I mean, what are you seeing, or what, whether it's information or experiences or all of it, that parents and teens can know about the pandemic? I mean, what are you seeing out there?
I think that when all of us celebrated New Year's Day 2020, none of us imagined that this could have ever happened.
Oh,
And
geez.
to talk about an unexpected, or the term unprecedented is often used in the media, and I think that it is so true that no one within at least my generation, and I think probably the generation prior or even before that, has experienced a pandemic of these levels and of this magnitude. And with that in mind, I think all of us have tried to do what we can to try to remain present, both for ourselves and our professions and our social lives and our family lives, but also to be as supportive as we possibly can to our kids. But the world is continuing to change on a daily basis. And the information that we get, I think, then has to be filtered through our experiences, our anxieties, and already what we're struggling with as individuals. And so as a result, what we get is a group or a population of individuals, adolescents, let's use them as an example, who are experiencing for the first time changes in their worlds that are not only unknown, unprecedented, but on top of that, that they've lost all these really important developmental shifts that are so important, right? I mean, think about when you started high school, right? When you started ninth grade, how excited you were in July of the summer to start school, or in May when you were getting ready to walk across the stage for graduation, get your high school diploma.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it just is, it is so impactful. And so for all of us, you and I were sitting, we're working, we're able to be on our laptops, we're able to work with colleagues and talk about what we're doing, and continue to some degree to work remotely. But our kids are at home working in an environment that they're not used to, having to focus in ways that they never imagined, right? I mean,
Right.
it really does. If you think about it just for a minute, what it must be like to be a teenager right now, and to have all these expectations. Like, for example, I have one of my sons is 15 and a half, and he's been talking about getting his learner's permit forever, right?
Oh, man.
And he's already told me, the type of car that he hopes to have someday. He's looking forward to driving. He corrects me on how I'm driving all the time, right? And can't get an appointment with the DMV. DMVs have been closed. When they're not closed, lines for hours and hours. And so all of these things that we typically would associate with being an adolescent have had to sort of been pushed aside. And we've all had to develop a new way of interacting, a new way of having social relationships, and a new way of viewing how these next few months, or hopefully just few months, will be. Because California, right? As we were talking before we started, California looks like we're on our way to another lockdown.
Yeah.
And we know that with that lockdown, we have an increase in feelings of sadness, feelings of depression, feelings of anxiety for those teenagers. Talking about teenagers that have been struggling with alcohol and drugs, that have been struggling with mental health symptoms, we see that they're falling back on those substances and on those maladaptive coping skills because they're just overwhelmed. And who isn't overwhelmed, right? I mean, all of us just trying to figure out what day it is. It's a really difficult time, you know? And Insight as a program been around over 20 years.
Right.
And it started because there was a community of individuals, teens, who needed a place that was safe, that had a skill set that could help understand where they were at, and to help them to get through whatever mental health or what we call co-occurring substance abuse issues that they were having. You know, and what we discovered was that if you just bring in the teenager and you say, hey, 3 hours a day, you're going to come to a program. We're going to give you some great skills, some great groups. We're going to give you an avenue to where you can talk about what's going on. What we were seeing is that these kids would start to feel better in the groups, but they'd go home and the system wasn't changing. Because there was no intervention in the system, right? So what we realized is we needed to help the entire family get better. And so Insight as a program not only takes in the teenager, it takes in the whole family. And it says to the family, listen, we know that you're struggling. We know that you've hit an obstacle. We're going to help all of you get through it. And in getting through that obstacle, you get stronger, you get faster, you get better, right? And you're ready to take on that next developmental challenge. And you just sort of look in the rearview mirror and say, look what I got through. I'm able to go forward with my family with me, right? So our program and that strong family focus has helped, I don't know, probably thousands of families over the 20 years we've been around. And what we found is that communities need us. So we, of course, have our original program in Van Nuys. We have our program in Pasadena, which is where I am today. We have our program in El Segundo. And beginning of August, very exciting, we're opening up our fourth program in Santa Clarita. So this is really big news.
Yes, it is. That's great.
Now, one of the things, if I can just add on to that,
of course,
is in all of our programs, what we also realized was that if people are able to use their insurance, they're going to be able to dive deeper into our program and stay for what we hope is 12 months, because we do have a 12-month program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because change takes time.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Right? I mean, we don't come in. Listen, I know we were talking a little bit of hockey before we started, right?
Yes.
You learn how to do a 100-mile-an-hour slap shot just to, clean some pucks off your garage in a couple hours.
Right. That's not a good month of working out. That's not a 20 days change your habits kind of thing, certainly.
Exactly. It takes time. And so, what we have found is that 12-month commitment from families, they have the time to grow, they have the time to develop. And as we know, teenagers grow over time. We want to make sure we provide this really incredible supportive community, a 12-month program that accepts insurance, because that way we know that people can stay. So as an insurance-friendly program, our goal is to give people, of course, the intensive outpatient experience that they have, and also be able to reach the family, reach the system, get them back up on their feet.
Gotcha. No, that all sounds tremendous, and moreover, that sounds like something that so many people would need right now. I mean, like you said, I mean, it's obviously people are going to have struggles at any time, but in this particular time, when if you are a predilection towards something, it'd be even harder to stay away from it. What I would be very fascinated to hear about is that, I mean, speaking for myself personally, I have asthma. I have some underlying conditions and things, so I've been maybe a little more locked down than a lot of people. And I know from having worked with some of the stuff you guys looked over, some of the stuff you guys have, that you've all done tremendous work on making your facilities and your treatments, safe for people during this time from the disease. If you could say a little bit more about that, I'd love to hear it. Yeah,
Thank you. Our CEO. When this pandemic came out, we all met as a team, and there was a conversation. The conversation was, listen, a lot of the kids that are with us, they need us. These families need us. And yes, this pandemic is scary, and yes, we don't know a lot about it, but where these kids are at, where many of them are at, or where they've been and where they could go back to, is really dangerous as well. And so what we developed within probably the first 3 or 4 days of this pandemic coming out, where the strategies are actually implemented in almost every other place that you go to now. So, for example, we have these large facilities. There's fantastic air filtration. Everybody wears masks. Lots of sanitizing of surfaces. All those important things are going on, so the kids can do the work that they need to do. The parents can come in and do the work that they need to do. And for people with underlying health conditions, what we want to be able to do is provide an environment where they feel safe, where they feel supported. And if somebody really has a condition that they can't come in, we will develop a hybrid model. But ideally, our goal is to have every person come in, because we know that in-person treatment is the most effective form of treatment. And while this is going on, we want this environment to be a place where people feel safe to do that level of in-person treatment.
Gotcha. Okay. So that, yeah. So it's like, so it's the kind of thing where, you know, that they'd be so much better off, you know, going into the in-person thing. And I know from looking at your stuff that there's such a high quality and premium of what you do in terms of that, like, you know, the socializing for the kids, that being around other kids that are going through the same thing as them. And what you're saying is that it's both safe and they can still get that even with maintaining a social distancing and even with wearing a mask, as long as they're at your place. Or
Yes, absolutely, Greg. I mean, you hit right on it. It's about community. In all of our programs, I mean, I think even behind me there's this slogan.
I mean, I wasn't saying that when I was thinking it, but yes, that is directly above your head now that you've mentioned it, Doctor. That
But in every program, it is this idea of creating community, right? Through creating community, we create a support network for teenagers that is adaptive and healthy, and it's boundaried by fellowship. It's boundaried by people who know where they are at because they've been there before. So we want the kids to feel that not only are they coming to treatment for themselves and their families, but they're also developing friendships that they'll have hopefully for the rest of their life. And they're developing friendships with people that know where they've been, and some of them are on their way to being where they're at, and some of them are able to provide a perspective because they've been there before. And it's through creating community. And Insight has these great, gosh, I'll tell you, we do some great experiential stuff. We've got drumming and yoga and boxing and journaling and psychodrama, all these great groups that go on. But also, the CEO is a huge proponent of the kids getting out into nature and having experiences. So every 2-3 months, the kids get out and they go to Big Bear, they go to Avalon, they spend the weekend with the therapist, with their other peers, and they have experiences outside of the treatment program that bring them closer together and help them to see that being a teenager who is sober and who is feeling healthy psychologically can be an incredible rush and a goal that we want all of them to have.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I mean, it was just striking hearing you say the words community and support and fellowship, and that's all the things that, you know, that so many people who beyond the teens have been severed from during this time. I mean, but from what you're saying with like all these groups and all that, it's interesting because you mentioned yoga and drumming and boxing and all that, and these are all things that are still ongoing. Like the kids can still get that today at Insight, like.
Absolutely. In addition to our regular process groups and anger management groups and communication groups, we have our experiential groups that are running, that are safe for the kids to participate, of course, that are COVID safe to the degree that we can make them. Because we want everybody to feel that, okay, I can come in and I can do these important things and I can feel better, I can feel more stable, and I can do what I have to do to get better. And that's really what we all want our kids and our families to do, is get better, right? I mean, for example, we have a graduation coming up, and a graduation when someone has been with us for 12 months, and they've reached all of the goals and milestones that they've put out in front of them. That this particular person has had over 12 months of sobriety. And the graduation is such a beautiful experience because it provides everybody with an opportunity to say, I remember when you came in here and you were shut down and you were angry and you were running away from your house, or you were getting yourself into trouble at school, you weren't doing what you needed to be doing, and you and your family started to come in and do the work that you needed to do, and you started to change, and you started to grow, and you started to feel more confident, and you see it. You see, it's so beautiful to watch when someone first comes in, and they're really struggling. The family doesn't know what to do, and they just and there's a lot of support that goes on, and it's not just support from us as a program; it's a support from the entire community. So for example, Greg, every week we have a parent group, and it's just parents getting together, and they're talking about, listen, my son or daughter is doing this, my son or daughter is doing that. What do we do with that? And the other parents can empathize. They can say, well, this is what I do,
Huh.
those kind of things. It's about providing a sense of community, not only for the teen, but also for the parents. Because, when you get lost in the weeds, sometimes you don't know which direction to go. And
For
so
sure.
that's what we're trying to do, is give a periscope.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That makes so much sense. And I'm sure, I mean, I feel I know the answer to this, but I throw it out there anyway, that you mentioned the parents groups and all that. Those things also continue during this time. Like you mentioned, the parents group, all that, that's all
Absolutely.
still going. Mhm.
Absolutely. We have remained open. Well, let me put it this way. We never closed. As an,
Hey, okay.
as an essential business, we did not close.
All right.
We provided support for our teens and our families every day since, January 1, 2020, or if you want to go back to the year 2000, we've been providing support every day, and we'll continue to do it. And in Santa Clarita, there are some great resources out there that we're going to be joining in regards to. They're out there, they're doing some great work too, such as Light of Hope and A Far Way Out. And so there are existing adult programs out there. There's some great recovery communities out there. But for teens, we're so excited because we're bringing a model, we're bringing an opportunity for those families who live in that area to have the same opportunities that we've been providing in Pasadena and also down in Van Nuys for years.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was looking up a little bit about the Santa Clarita facility before that. I mean, it seems, I mean, obviously you can't, if there's one thing we've learned in the last few months is that you can't necessarily predict the future, but it seems like as much as any building could or place could be ready for this time, it seems like your Santa Clarita facility is. I mean, isn't it like 5,000 square feet or something like that? I was reading like.
Yes, it's a beautiful. So what we try to do at Insight is we try to provide a creative workshop for kids to come into. Teenagers need to move. They need to have space. Our programs, we have about an average of about 15 kids each day in the intensive outpatient program. And of course, we have a day program for those kids that need some academic supports. And
Okay.
so that runs before the intensive outpatient program begins. But
Oh,
so
okay.
our space has the opportunity for a classroom setting where kids can do their online learning. It has heavy bags.
Oh, the heavy bag. Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Climbing walls. The colors are bright. The environment is big. And it's big because the kids need space to talk, to hang out, to be able to feel like teenagers, right? And so the space is consistently clean. There's great ventilation. It's really light and bright. Listen, if you have, I don't know where in the world you are, but if you have a chance to come look at it, it's really a beautiful space.
Well, yeah, I'm in the valley, but frankly, somewhere light and bright with a sense of community sounds pretty great right now during this particular time. Yeah,
I'll tell you, especially as we get ready, or as it looks like, over the next week or two, if Los Angeles does close down a little bit for safety and for all of our protection and safety. This is a place where the kids can go and have the space to do the work that they need to do in an environment that is as safe as possible.
No, that all sounds tremendous. I mean, just I feel like you touched on this already, but it's something we talked about beforehand, and it just kind of fascinates me almost in summation about what you've been talking about today. But it's I see the last thing I wrote, we were talking ahead of time, was about meaning and purpose. And if you could say a little bit more about that, because that to me is the most fascinating, one of the most fascinating parts of that, because it's almost like that's what this is like building towards, like.
I love it. I'm sorry, I'm laughing because I literally could talk for 5 hours about meaning and purpose. like you said that, I was like, oh my goodness, this is great. We're gonna like really get into mindfulness.
Which is fine, believe me. I mean, I'm getting paid for the time regardless. If you want to keep going with it, I'm good, man.
Adaptation of the organism as it sort of moves through conflictual spaces. I mean, so when we have meaning, we have purpose,
Okay.
right?
Yes.
And so one of the most interesting side effects that I don't think a lot of people thought about with this pandemic is for a lot of people a loss of meaning.
Mm-hmm.
So if my identification was my job and I'm great at my job, and then I lose my job and I lose the people that I work with that I see every day, then I've lost an essential part in many ways of my identity.
Yes.
And I want to take that and I want to put that onto the experience of the adolescent. And adolescent's job as a student. And adolescent's job is to move throughout a high school environment and to have the conflicts and the successes of the interactions that they have with their peers and their teachers as they have opportunities to make mistakes within the space, right? And that space is high school environment. That's why high school is so important as a developmental place. It gives us meaning and it gives us purpose. When we remove that, if we have an already family system that's struggling in an environment, maybe because of mental health issues, maybe because of family systems issues, maybe because of substance abuse issues,
right,
that loss of meaning can result in a loss of purpose. And so what Insight tries to do is to help realign the adolescent experience and the family experience to now say that really where your meaning is contributing to the community of Insight to give you purpose not only for yourself, but for the other 14 individuals that you're now in program with, growing, learning, and developing.
Oh, yeah.
So, it's that integration of an identity of service versus an integration of an identity of lost opportunities.
Right. Yeah. You're like, yeah, it's when something goes off track, you folks can show up and maybe fix isn't the word, but like you said, adjust, realign, refocus yeah.
Gosh, I mean, as parents, how often have we sat with our partner and looked over at the end of the night after our kids have gone to bed and go, I don't know what to do.
Right.
This one I don't know, right? You kind of look at each other and you go, I don't know what to do. What do we do?
It's a universal parenting. I mean, I'm not a parent, but yeah, that's the universal experience. Yes.
And I'll tell you, it happens day one. You bring them home from the hospital, and it happens throughout their experience. Many nights you sit and you look at each other and say, I don't know what to do. And it's an incredibly humbling experience. And regrettably, it's one that oftentimes we feel like we're alone in. Right. Insight gives a community to where you can say, I don't know what to do. And someone else looks at you and goes, I don't know what to do either. Yeah. You know what? I had that same feeling. And then to have a professional, one of the clinical directors, let's say Dr. Plancher or Dr. JG or Debbie Bream, who's the new clinical director out there at Santa Clarita, say, I get it. I understand. This is what you can try. Let's try this. And all of a sudden you go from a place of, oh my goodness, to, okay, I'll try. Let me see what happens. Right?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's that moment where you have your moment of vulnerability at 1 o'clock in the morning when you're up looking at your partner going, I don't know where our son or daughter is right now.
Right. I've been looking online. I've been reading all these articles, drive myself crazy, doom scrolling. Yep.
I can't find them, or I just got a report they're not going to school, or what do I do? What do I do?
Right.
We'll help you find what to do, which works for your family. Because listen, what works for the family across the street is not going to work for you.
Oh yeah.
So, that's what we try to do, is we try to give, enough answers so that when things come back onto the rails, then the family starts to find its own pathway. The family begins to find the way through the obstacles and move towards graduation. And again, it takes time.
Oh yeah, but it just, it just documented here. I mean, it's struck by how much of, and I guess I didn't really put it together before now, is how much of what you do really is about empowering the family. Like it's
Absolutely.
giving them this, you know, these tools from which, hey, they can figure it out in their own way as a unit and yet as people. Like,
Absolutely. And I'll tell you that it's hard to change. Wow. It's
oh
really
man, yeah.
right. Gosh. And so we don't expect that a teenager is going to say, "Yeah, I want to go to intensive outpatient program." Or they say, "Wow, this is great." We don't
That's what I always wanted. Why get me anything for Christmas? I'm here. Yeah.
I'll tell you, maybe we get one out of 50 kids that'll say that, right?
I'm
But
surprised the number's that high. That's I believe you, but that sounds pretty steep, doctor.
but what we're able to do is normalize that experience. We say to the teen, listen, we know you might not want to be here, but we know that you need to be here, and this is why, and we're going to help you. And with the family, we say, we understand that you're scared about being here, and we understand that change is hard, but we're all in this together.
Right.
We're all paddling the boat the same river.
Right. Yeah. No, and then that speaks to that community thing that you were talking about before. That we literally all are in the meta. We are all in this boat. Like that's really something. Well, I could talk to you all day about this. This is fascinating to me, but I probably shouldn't. Are there any final? I mean, I'd love to have you back whenever you'd want to. By all means, do so, doctor. But is there anything else you'd like to cover today, or even just to let the folks know where they can reach you for more information? Or
Absolutely. I encourage people to go onto our website, which is insighttreatment.com.
Mhm.
And I also encourage, if you're curious about it, if a family is wondering about, is this the right step for my son or daughter? Is this the right step for my family? Reach out to us, give us a call, talk with us about what's going on, and we'll help guide you in the direction that would be hopefully most helpful to you and your family.
Right. I mean, it just seems on that same thing. It seems like there's really nothing to lose with that phone call. I mean, worst to worst, you're going to talk to a supportive, understanding person. It's going to try and help you out. Like,
Yep, absolutely. And in fact, if you come in and you talk with us in that meeting, we'll do that 100% free. We want you to talk with us. We
oh
want you
wow,
we want to meet with you. We want to be helpful to you. So that assessment is part of the Insight experience.
that's great. That's great. Well, again, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I could have talked to you for days, doctor. Thank you so much for coming out, doctor, today. This is, I mean, by coming out, I mean clicking a button on your computer at your office, but still, it counts as coming out in this context. So glad to have you here. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for having me today.
of course. So this is great. Well, for Website Depot, everyone, my name is Greg Benevent. Take it easy, and we'll see you next time.